Okay, I'll kick it off then. My number five, I'm sure will be on your list, maybe higher than five. I got Steph Curry. Um,
Okay.
he finished the season as a scoring champ. He has kept his team in the mix, and I feel like a lot of people weren't necessarily expecting that. With the news of Clay being out the whole season, they've had ups and downs. Like it hasn't been like a great season overall, but he's like because he's gotten so hot, especially like recently.
Yeah.
I think he deserves to be in the conversation for sure, and we'll see. I mean, obviously, what happens in the postseason doesn't necessarily get factored in, but it's just like the fact that we're even talking about the Warriors and that they're potential to be in the playoffs and they're like must see TV again because Steph can just like drop 40 at any given moment. I think he's deserving at least getting a shout out this year.
Yeah. So you're right in that Curry's a little higher for me. So my number
Yeah.
five was actually CP3. So for him, and I guess I can give you my little criteria really quick. So there are five rankings that I gave, or five like rubric, five things on the rubric that I was thinking about. Um, and then I gave each one on a score of like 1 to 5. Like just gave a 1 point, 1 point or 1.5 points. So you could do on the half scale because it got a little like you needed to give it like, oh, this person's a little bit better, but not a whole point better.
Yeah.
I've got, are you available? So like, did you play enough games? Did you make the other guys better? Like, are you a catalyst? Like, are you the leader on the team? There's impact. So, what kind of impact do you make? Like, how unstoppable you are? And that's where, like, guys like Steph, Giannis get a whole bunch of credit. Stats, like, you just got to put up numbers,
Oh yeah.
essentially. And then, how good is your team? Like, you got to have a, to me, winning matters a little bit in the MVP thing because otherwise you would have guys like bless his heart, Zach Levine getting votes like
Right.
years ago.
No, winning is
So,
important.
yeah, so I don't think any of those are like crazy. I feel like the waiting part is where most people would probably differ when you think about those things, and there's probably some other stuff I missed. But CP3 available as it gets basically this year, and usually he's not there. Like best record in the West out of all the candidates possible, and then like we've seen the graphic a million times, like that before and after of like this is the team before he's there. This is the team after. Like so, he got on my ballot where he kind of fell off for me. Is like numbers wise, like he didn't quite put up the numbers that you want him to put up, like for MVP candidate, and then like he's guardable. Like you can put guys on CP3 to slow him down to kind of put an impact on him. And I think we might, depending on who they play, like you might see a little bit of that. Like I imagine if you put a elite defending point guard on CP3, he's going to give him some problems. So he's a little bit more stoppable than some of the other guys on there.
Agreed.
So
I don't want to get
CP3
too much into it because, spoiler alert, I have him later.
5. Okay. Do you want to do the round robin style? Because then I can just go with
Yeah,
who my
yeah.
next one is.
Do that.
So my next guy is Giannis. So I got Giannis at number 4. Um, like unquestionable impact. Like I feel like his biggest downside, other than the fact that the team feels like they're better, like they have a better roster
Yeah.
and kind of underperformed compared to previous seasons. Now they only got PJ towards the end of the year, but they've had Drew all year. It's just been a weird year in general. But I'm like, I feel like they're better. I feel like his numbers are about the same. And I'm like, I just got to see how they perform in those late games because that's kind of where he gets a little unreliable and sketchy. Those games against Brooklyn gave me a lot of hope for how good they can be. But had to like I feel like Giannis was not getting enough love in the water cooler talk out there. And I'm like, have you seen that guy's numbers? He's like number 3 in PER. Like, have you seen him? So had to
Yeah,
give Giannis some props.
that's perfect. That's a perfect transition because I also have Giannis at number 4, so I could just piggyback off of that. I mean, to me, honestly, like the only case like against him or the reason why he's this far down on my ballot is like voter fatigue. It's just like we don't really want to give him a third in a row because it's like we kind of want to give it to someone else at this point. But like to your point, like he's putting up this pretty much the same numbers as he has in his previous MVP campaigns. So and then, like you said too, it feels like the team has elevated to another level as well. So, like, yeah, I think he very much deserves to be in the conversation. I just think he's at this point. It's like they just want new blood in the wall. Like they just want new blood in the mix. Like they're kind of just tired of giving him MVP at this point.
Yeah, and I kind of hope it gives him a little chip on his shoulder, to be honest, too. Like,
Yeah,
fuck you
like he'll
guys.
just
So,
yeah he's just gonna like play like he's the MVP because he's like, well, I'm the I'm
yeah,
the reigning MVP, and they're not gonna give it to me this year, but I'm still gonna play like it. So
yeah.
yeah, I hope,
Unlike some other teams in the West that shall not be mentioned, like they saw the battle against the Heat coming up in round one, and they're like, we want that.
yeah. Oh,
Like,
I love that mentality. That yeah that is definitely something to say about a team like that because like they're hungry for the revenge. They're not trying to avoid anyone. They're just like let's just go out there and win it. And I feel like Giannis kind of leads the way with that mentality in terms of the leadership, the the Mamba mentality. Like I
yeah,
think
he's like,
he's literally got that. Like he does.
he'll take a pull up three, even though that's not who he is. He's like we talked briefly like over text about this, like seeing Ja like shoot those like wide open threes and just clank them. I was like, oh man, like this,
Yeah.
like it just exposes such a thing about you. And in those late games, like if he's able to knock those down, like you
Yeah,
gotta live and die
and
with
you,
that. And
I was gonna say, and you're seeing Giannis hit them more and more now. So you're gonna give him that shot, but when he hits it, it's like brutal to the other team because it's like, especially if he's hitting it consistently in a game. But like you said too, even in big moments, he's not
yeah,
afraid to do it. So like, if he's gonna do it and make it, then you're like, well, we're
yeah,
screwed.
it's
Yeah,
literally the throw your hands up, like, well, we're not gonna
yeah,
know if he's gonna make
yeah. Like I'm gonna give him that shot, but he can make it. That's the thing. It's not like he's like a terrible percentage. Like he'll make it if you make him wide open.
Yeah, while we're talking, I'm actually curious. I'm gonna look up what he is from through this year. But
I think it was better than last year, but maybe not his best season. I almost want to say it's in like the low 30s. I don't even know.
yeah, but it's definitely improved. I know that much. Not like Bobby Portis, but you
And yeah, I mean, and he still takes a lot of them too, which is interesting.
yeah. All right, who else do you got? Who do you got?
All right, I'll go to my number three. I'm going Joel Embiid. So he would probably be my number two, but he just like missed a pretty large chunk of games. Like, and it's crazy because the reason he's in consideration is because it's like this is his healthiest season he's pretty much ever had, and he's been so consistent. But he still didn't really like, in my opinion, meet that criteria of playing enough games to be like super impactful. But I think the case to be made is like the best player on the team with the best record, at least in the East. So it's like, there's a reason why the Sixers are sitting at the number one seed. It's like Joel Embiid was a huge reason for that.
Yeah, I do. I've kind of started to come around and on rooting way more for Philly.
Yeah.
And I don't like. I like guys on their team. Like Tybal's one of my favorite guys, but like,
Tobias is my guy. I like Tobias a lot.
yeah, and I'm just like, I don't know. I'm coming around on them, and Embiid is good. We'll talk more about Embiid in a little bit, but my number three was actually Curry. Um, so you hit on most of the points. Like super low expectations coming in this year. Like nobody expected them really to make the playoffs. Broke. I saw some tweet about the number of records he broke, and realizing that there were 10 more games in the season that he could have played.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
he might have broke all of them. Like easily
Oh
the
yeah.
most watchable player in the league. And I think the underrated part about Curry that when I was doing my points on is like how much do you make other guys better? Um,
Totally.
and
Totally.
realizing like he has that like catalyst impact in like the sneakiest way, like because he just has three guys surrounding him. He's
Yep.
making guys like Jordan Poole
Yeah.
and those guys look better. And I'm like, man, when Clay comes back, there was a play. I forget the guy's name. He's number 15. There was a play in the game yesterday when it was like they had the typical like swinging the ball around. Curry gets the ball and he like does a shovel because like three
Yep.
guys like converge on him. And I'm like, if that shovel is not to number 15, whose name I can't
Yeah.
remember, and that's to Clay next
Right.
year, like, do you know
That's
how?
yeah, that's lights out
Oh man,
all day.
so just best of health to Clay and then Curry and all.
Yeah.
Man,
No, that's such a good point though. Like when we're talking about most valuable, it's how much you impact the other players too. And I think you're totally right. Like I think everyone also just like feeds off that energy too. And like there's like little things too. I know there's like body language and like team effort and stuff don't really get factored into MVP, but like yesterday or whatever game it was I was watching the Warriors when Steph was on the bench for an extended period of time, you can just see how much he was like getting hyped when the bench guys like the reserve guys were like making big plays. Like you can just see that he was like really, really into it and like cheering him on and like I think it just like feeds off of that.
yeah, and like he he does the Baron Davis, like
Yeah,
his like energy is oh
that's
man.
what I'm saying. Like I feel like he not like doing it for theatrics or anything, but I do feel like he feels right now extra motivated to like get the crowd going, get the teammates going more than he's ever done in the past because it's kind of like just let the game speak. But here it's like, their record's not their record. They're not the 73 wins team, so it's more like he feels like there's a chip on his shoulder and he's just trying to like get as much out of it as he can. And I feel it just feels like he's playing with even more energy than he ever has.
and and not to slight the Slim Reaper, but like there's a reason he was still seen as the number two guy when he
Yeah,
was
that's
there.
what I mean.
It's like that, all of that, right? Like even seeing and looking back at it now, like you look at KD when he was on OKC, you look at him when he was on Golden State, and even now, like kind of on Brooklyn, where it's like people are more wondering like when is Harden coming back?
Yeah.
Like I don't. He just might not be the alpha guy that we all want him to be. I guess. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this playoffs plays out, but it makes a lot more sense now. Saying like, yeah, he can do more. Like KD's got a higher ceiling, but
Yeah,
this is why Curry is the dude. Um, Speaking of
absolutely.
ceilings, I guess that's my transition to my number two, which is Embiid. Kind of predictably, like you said, missed a ton of games. Um, the best record in the East, I think, kind of matters a little bit. They're not as good as teams in the West, but I'm like, for the amount of games that he played, to see that team with that record, and then the main thing for me is like that defensive impact that he makes. Like of the other five guys that are on my like that I ranked, I'm like ultimately he's got the largest defensive impact.
Yeah.
And I
Giannis
think
arguably, but
yeah, Giannis
they're neck and
arguably.
neck.
Jokic, I was looking up his like I forget what it is, like defensive something rating, and I was like, dang, Giannis is like right behind, or not Giannis, Joker is like right behind him in
Yeah.
terms of like defensive rating. So I was like, I need to give Jokic's defense another look too. Like
Oh
he
yeah.
might not be like above the rim, shot blocker, rim defender kind of guy, but yeah, I think that's ultimately the case for Embiid. I got to see him put it together in the playoffs though.
Yeah. And
That's
stay healthy
tough
for the
losses.
whole playoffs, hopefully, and just continue to dominate the way he's dominated.
Yeah, the way the Heat played them made me a little bit interested to see what that series is going to look like if they have to meet. But I actually don't know if the Heat are going to get a chance to play Philly again. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got a little crazy with it.
I,
And
I suspected you might have.
yeah, I have Chris Paul at two, which is just it really doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't think anyone's ever gonna have him this high, but like feeding off of a lot of the things you said, I value that so much, just like the year over year improvement. Like clearly he's the reason why, not the only reason, but such a huge reason why the Suns literally went from not even being in the playoffs, like they almost made it in the bubble, like came as close as you possibly can, didn't even make the playoffs, and then this year they're the number two, and within the last day we're like in contention to be number one in the West in like a pretty competitive conference. And we were talking about it too the other day. Yeah, his numbers aren't like super crazy, but the in terms of the efficiency, the like very close to the 50-40-90, like that says something as well. I just feel like I don't know. I guess I'm getting a little crazy with it, but I just wanted to put him super high because I feel like he's not getting enough credit.
Dude, I would say like he had to be on my ballot. I would say he can validate you putting him at number two depending on what happens in round one.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, and again, that I like that's not necessarily factored in, and
yeah.
it is what it is. I think part of it too is like because he's like the older vet. It's like these other guys are probably going to have other MVP type season. Like
Yeah.
if Embiid doesn't win this year, if he keeps it up, he can still be in contention next year. Giannis already has a couple. Steph has a couple.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you're there's going to be a time where he's like back in the conversation. I think it's the season, but I'm just getting a little crazy with it.
At the very least it feels like a good consolation vote. Like
Yeah,
people are gonna give him votes, which is well deserved.
for sure. Okay, so then does that kick me back to?
Yeah, I think that leaves us with the pretty
Okay, so we both have the same number one, but I could go first. I got the Joker, Nikola Jokic. I think what really solidified this for me, I feel like he was a favorite for a majority of the season, but what really solidified it to me was back to what we were talking about earlier, like Jamal Murray going down with an injury. I feel like when that happened, everyone was very very quick to be like, "Yo, Nuggets are toast. Like they're done." Like that's such a key piece of their team, which is true. But they went ahead and proved everyone wrong. Where they're like, well, it's kind of next guy up. It's like we're gonna fill in that void. We're gonna like obviously he's still valuable to the team, but they're gonna figure out ways to win, even being down one of their key players. And they went on like a crazy streak, or I don't know if it was a full win streak, but they definitely like were winning a majority of their games, even after that happened. So I feel like a lot of that. I mean, obviously there was role players who stepped up. The Michael Porter Juniors and things like that. But Jokic is their team leader. He's their best player, and he's the one who's leading them into that success. And still, I mean, they're still a number three seed. I don't think anyone expected that after Jamal Murray's injury.
No, and you nailed it all. I think for me, it's like two things that I wrote down for him. Like, didn't skip a beat when he went out,
Yeah.
and then the no miss games thing is like he's there, man. Like,
Yeah, yeah, we're talking about availability. He's the
yeah,
most available guy.
yeah. Like I can't. I'm sure there's other guys, but like in terms of like important guys on teams,
Yeah,
I'm like I don't think like at least of the other five guys that I had on this list, I'm like all of them missed games. I know Dame missed some games. I
yeah.
heard something about like Zubats like didn't miss any games, and I was like, okay, cool, great. But
Duncan Robinson, I think, like started every single game too, which I was like,
yeah,
oh, good for you, Duncan.
but I'm like, you look at any star, like any of the top guys that are even being considered for like MVP or All NBA contention, I'm like, Joker's the only dude that didn't miss any time at all. So
Yeah,
you got to get a lot of extra credit for that in my mind. So especially
yeah.
especially in this season with like 3-4 games a week, compressed, COVID, like all that, and he doesn't miss games. So
Yeah, absolutely. You touched on it a little bit earlier too. Like, I feel like the aspect of his game that had some criticism was his defense. But like when I watch these Nuggets games, like he's not like a minus on defense
no,
or anything. And you said too, looking at his ratings, like he's actually a pretty competent defender. Like he's a big body. He has really long arms, and he's got quick hands too. Like he can like cause a lot of trouble in passing lanes. He's good at anticipating where the passes are going to go. I feel like he gets a lot of steals. Like, I feel like that's an underrated aspect because I feel like that was initially what we were like, well, that's like his biggest weakness, but it's probably still true, but it's still like not that big of
yeah,
a
like if your
like
biggest weakness is like kind of a strength, then
yeah.
and it's funny when I did the final tally of my scores, I didn't I didn't rank them based on my tally. Like it was like at the end of the day, I still just ranked them. The only person that really swapped is Curry and Giannis.
Yeah.
I did the scores. I scored them, ranked them, and then after that did the total. So I knew what they were afterwards, and it was Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, Curry, and CP3. But I was like, nah, I think I got to give Curry the nod over Giannis in this one. So
Yeah. So yeah, we actually had the same five. We just had them in different order. We both left off Dame. I don't know, like I wouldn't be mad. Like Dame could definitely sneak into like a five, like on this ballot.
yeah,
But I just the Blaze. I think thinking about just like winning records, like the Blazers. What are they? The sixth seed. Like that's
yeah.
decent, but I don't know if that's enough to really get like MVP buzz.
Yeah, and I know CJ missed a whole bunch of time, which
Yeah.
was hard for them. But I'm like, so did um, Jamal Murray. Like, so did a lot of guys. A lot of people were missing. I guess the Suns are relatively healthy this year too, which kind of helped.
Yeah, I think the other
But
consider like I don't even know which players are getting buzzed, but it's interesting that like the Nets players, I think they all kind of just like cancel each other out. Plus, they missed a whole
yeah,
shit ton of games. And then like if you think about the Jazz, like the Jazz are the best team record wise in the West, but it's like is a Donovan Mitchell or like a Rudy Gobert worth getting an MVP? I think part of it is because they're kind of like the Spurs 2.0. They're a very team oriented team, and it's not
yeah.
necessarily about like a superstar. Is that kind of what you think in terms of why none of those none of them are getting any kind of MVP buzz really?
I probably. I mean, when I think of Dame, I'm like, if I'm looking at those five guys, I'm like, for the most part, I wouldn't put Dame on over any of them. Um, but then when I look at somebody like Luca, like no, can't can't give it to Luca with that record this year. And
Right.
then Donovan, yeah, like they're Donovan's clearly like the guy on their team, but I'm like it's very similar to like last year. Like if they had won that series against Denver last year, like if he makes that three coming down and like they
Yeah.
go to the second round, I think he probably gets a little bit more credit for what they're doing this year. And it's crazy that like, oh yeah, one missed shot can have like that much of a perception on you, but yeah, they kind
But
of
like
got
should that factor into like this year's MVP
it.
voting? I
It
don't think
I
so.
don't think it should, but it like I also think like when you think of like Donovan, like any of these guys, like you take Jokic off, you take Embiid off, you take Giannis off, you take Curry off,
You're right. You're right.
all of those teams like plummet immediately.
Yeah.
Um, I don't feel as like, and Donovan is one of my like top. So, like, I don't feel that way about him yet. Like I
I
feel like
agree.
because even though like they've been okay, like they've been middling, like surviving without him the past couple games. So like
Yeah.
I
No,
don't,
I
yeah,
think I think you're totally right. I think, like I said, part of it is like the way the style of play. Like it's not like we'll give Donovan the ball and he'll make it happen. Like that's kind of what it is with a lot of these players that we've talked about at the MVP. It's more like a very team oriented. Like they run deep. Like they have two guys. They're kind of like the Clippers that one year. They have like two guys that could potentially be six man of the year, like Joe Ingles and Jordan Clarkson. So like you're so deep that you have two
yeah,
guys that are potential six man of the year, and then you have one of the best defenses and the front runner for defensive player of the year probably too, and Rudy Gobert. So it's like that's kind of how you're winning games, not necessarily like take over Donovan Mitchell time.
yeah.
So, yeah,
But
it's just interesting because like we do value winning, but like you still having the number one record in the West doesn't necessarily mean like there's an MVP on your team.
yeah, I think the thing that and it's kind of evident because we're going to talk about the play-in next is like you can be the number one seed playing that way in the regular season, and then when those rotations get shortened to eight
Yeah,
people, like
yeah,
that stuff, like your style might not matter as much. Like
yeah.
Duncan and those guys played that way, but they still had Tim Duncan and Tony Parker and
Right.
they still had guys like that for those moments. So we'll see. I'm rooting for Donovan and
Yeah.
Nico, but I don't know.
This is a side tangent, but has did Tim Duncan ever win MVP?
He
Like regular
uh,
season MVP? I don't
he had to have, right?
I think he did.
Yeah, he had to have. Because I know David
I think,
Robinson won one.
yeah.
Yeah, I think he had to have won a couple,
So,
maybe.
I
Yeah,
mean,
he won them in 2002 and
okay.
2003.
So that I mean, like that team still had an MVP, I guess. So,
Yeah,
but there's no Tim Duncan equivalent on the Jazz.
yeah.
That's why I feel like they're the lesser version of the Spurs.
That's that is a perfect segue into this playing
Oh
system.
yeah,
Because
I love it.
you want to start in the West or the East first?
Let's start with the West. I feel like I just the way that I looked at the bracket, I wanted to start there. Okay, so how do we want to do this? Just kind of like go through the play-in first.
Yeah, let's do the playing games, basically like predicting who we think will win those, and then go into the first round
Okay.
predictions. I feel like for the most part, no, I'll say for the most part, I feel like most of the one or two seeds will win regardless of who they play. If that makes sense, for the most part, but we'll see. See how
Yeah, I
these,
mean,
yeah, we'll see
yeah,
how these predictions
yeah.
go.
I was like, I don't know
So,
about the West, but we'll see.
yeah,
Okay, so let's just start. Let's like look at this bracket, I guess. So let's start with the West and the nine versus 10 game.
yeah, yeah. We can talk about
Yeah, I'm going Grizzlies for sure. I just like I honestly didn't watch a lot of Spurs games. I know the Spurs are still the Spurs in a way. I know they're pretty different, but I the Grizzlies I think are hungry, and from what I've seen, like I feel like Ja will like just go all out and win at least that game. I feel like he's gonna put it all on the line, and yeah, I'm thinking Grizzlies over Spurs.
I actually went the other way after seeing them yesterday,
Okay.
and not because of um like the hunger and like the fight. Like they've got a really gritty roster, um, but seeing how scheme oriented like they can be, like I guess exposed to, like
Hmm.
if you put the right scheme against them, like they're very vulnerable. And I was
Yeah.
like, if there's one dude who can scheme up a really
Yeah.
good
The
game,
king of scheme,
yeah, I'm like, I think it might
Gregory
be,
Popovich.
yeah, I think it might be Pop. And they're probably not too like hungry after getting like they could have been the 7th seed, or they could have been rather like playing like
I
they
think they're
probably
hungrier
feel it.
now.
Yeah, you
I
think
think they're
so?
hungrier now because they're
I
like
could see
they
that.
could have had it, and then they're like, damn, like the Warriors outplayed us, and now they're like, we want to see them again, or maybe not them, but like we want to
Yeah,
get another chance here.
I could see that bit playing into it, but I feel like overplaying, like coming out too aggressive in a like playoff type
Yeah,
atmosphere.
I mean, they're young. They're a young team, man. All their best
Yeah.
players are young.
Now Jonas is gonna eat in that game. Like he destroyed the Warriors. I can see him equally destroying the Spurs, but I'm going with Pop. I'm not
That's
going with the
true.
Spurs. I'm going with Pop in this one.
You know what killed them yesterday too in that Warriors game was Dylan Brooks fouling out like so early. Like he played such a phenomenal game. Like
He was
he
bringing
did
it
as much,
back.
yeah, he did as much as you possibly could do, like trying to slow down Curry. Like obviously Curry still went off, but like him falling out with that much time left was
It just
no
deflated
bueno.
everything.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I think
they
they went
lost their
up by
momentum.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucked for them. So, but
All right, so Warriors versus Lakers. Who you got?
I
That's the
got the
biggest one.
Lakers.
That's the one I like stressed about the most, honestly, out of this whole thing. I was like, where do
Yeah,
I go here?
I got the Lakers in a one gamer. Like seeing so Simmons and Rosillo like pointed out that Valanciunas had like 29 and 15 or something like that against Golden State, and like missed like 3 shots, and the
Yeah.
Warriors still won. And that made me think, oh, well, that means AD can only do so much damage. But I'm like, but it's not just AD. It's AD and it's Drummond and it's LeBron.
Yeah,
And
size, a lot of
just like
size.
and Gasol. I'm like, they're not going to get a single rebound in this game. And the Lakers, the other thing that they do really well is very similar to the thing that, well, the only thing rather that bothered Memphis is like play defense. Like the Lakers' two biggest strengths are like defense and rebounding, and those are the two things that are most damaging probably to the Lakers. So, or most damaging to the Warriors. So, I feel like in a single gamer, like if it were a series, it might actually get interesting. Just
Yeah.
you know, they got the younger legs, and the Lakers are not super healthy. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, to your point, it's going to be interesting to see how everything matches up because it's like, do you put Draymond on AD or LeBron? Probably LeBron, right? But then then AD is just gonna it's gonna be barbecue chicken. He's gonna be defended by like Kevon Looney. Like,
yeah. I'm just like I can't see. I don't. It's tricky. There was a time where the Warriors, like, if they had more shooting, like if Clay was there, matchup wise, they could force the Lakers out of some of those really really big lineups. But I'm like, I think that if I'm the Lakers, I'm like, yeah, go ahead, Jordan Poole, see if you can beat us today. Now
yeah,
again, it is a one gamer,
it's
so
one game. So
yeah,
I mean, I was going back and forth with this between like what I want to happen, what I think will happen, but I still kind of went with what I want to happen. And I think because it's one game, I feel like the Warriors are on a high right now. I think they just have like a lot more momentum going to this. I mean, I don't even know. The Lakers probably did win their last game, but it just didn't feel like there was a lot. You know what I mean? They were just like
yeah. And LeBron got
getting over it. Yeah, just like let's just make sure we, don't fall as far as we possibly can, and we just win this game and whatever. The Warriors, I feel like, are like on the come up. Like they have a lot of momentum, especially after that last game. And I don't know. I think Curry's just like still gonna go crazy and somehow win them the game. It's gonna be really close and really exciting. At least I hope so. But I'm going Warriors.
Yeah, it was a closer one for me in my mind, mainly because I like you want them to win.
Yeah.
Um, but segue wise, do we want to go into like finish up the West, or do we want to go to the East and then
Well,
jump?
we want to finish out the play in, I guess, because
Well, I mean, in the
oh,
West, like, do we want to finish like the next game after that? Because it's
I
like
think we should, so we can establish what the like who the 7 and 8 are going to
got it,
be, in our
and
opinion.
and so for me, I have the Warriors winning that next game against the Spurs, so they still get in, but
Yes.
um, just not as the 7 seed.
Right. And so and I have the Lakers beating the Grizzlies and getting in as the 8 seed.
So
So
We got Lakers and
Lakers and Warriors flip flop basically.
yeah, just flip
The
flop.
other part doesn't really matter as much. If it's Grizzlies or Spurs that get eliminated,
Yeah,
who cares?
yeah, they're both out. Sorry, guys.
Okay, so then I guess what you're saying. So do we finish out the West bracket, or do we flip over to the
Oh,
play in
yeah.
for East?
Let's do the plan for the East and
Okay,
then do the
cool. So Pacers, Hornets. That's another one that's like a coin toss for me, honestly. I don't know that I've watched enough games of either, but I feel like I've seen more Hornets games. I feel like they're a little more fun, a little more flashy. We got the LaMelo Ball storyline and all that stuff. So I went with Hornets on this one.
I just googled and I'm gonna see
I think
Gordon
Pacers are
Hayward.
favored.
Yeah, I was like, what is Gordon Hayward's status? Because that might.
I don't think Hayward's going to play at all.
Yeah, it looks like
Is
Hayward.
Devonte Graham healthy? I feel like that's kind of a
Yeah, that's kind
small
of
X
important
factor.
too. Let's see, Devonte Graham. Let's see what they say about him. Status.
I know he's been out for a bit. If they can get like pretty close to healthy, I think they have a pretty good chance.
Yeah, that was gonna be. I mean, I'm still gonna pick the Pacers in that one, and it's not because I've actually enjoyed the random Hornets games and clips and stuff that I've tuned into, but I'm like, if I'm looking at like playoff pedigree, as weird as that is to say about the Pacers, I'm
Yeah.
like, they've got a
Yeah.
experienced
No.
guys there.
Yeah,
And
that's a
that
fair point. They've played playoff games, all of
yeah,
them. I mean, like all the main guys, right? Like
yeah, they've got
the
Levert, got
bonus,
Sabonis. Yeah, they've got more.
Brogdon,
Yeah, they've got a little bit of pedigree for being
way more than the
what it is.
Hornets do. The Hornets are all fresh blood, I feel like. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
so
unless Gordon Hayward comes back, which I don't know if that's even a possibility right now.
It's scary Terry or bust for them, which is not a very good scenario to be
Yeah,
in personally.
it's
So
not.
yeah, so I got Indy in that one.
Nice. Okay, so then Celtics versus Wizards.
Celtics Wizards. I prayed to the basketball gods over and over for this Russ versus KD, Kyrie, Harden, and I'm going with Washington to beat Boston in this one. Um,
Like it.
Boston's banged up. They're dejected. They keep losing the teams they should
Yeah,
lose to. I'm like, it feels like a perfect game for them to lose with like a hungry Russ trying to like prove his mettle. And like,
totally.
look, I don't just get triple doubles. I'm also a 7 seed. And
Yep.
actually, the Wizards were like 30 something and 10 or something after they started something crazy horrible at the
Yeah.
start of the season.
No,
I'm like,
it's a
they're not
hell of a
even
story,
good.
man. It's a hell of a turnaround. I if you asked me in the near the beginning of the season, I definitely didn't think the Wizards were even going to be anywhere. Like I definitely wouldn't have thought they'd be better than the Bulls this season. Like even when they got
Yeah,
Russ, I was like, well, that sucks that he's
ever.
going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It was like the most moot trade ever. Like he was
yeah, yeah. I was like, okay, you traded a John Wall who hasn't been healthy in years for a Russell Westbrook. Like I don't know. It didn't. It seemed very insignificant, but clearly it's been significant because like I did watch the triple double game, the game where he broke the Oscar Robertson's record, and like they were throwing out some stats of just like how many he's gotten just in the last like year and a half or like the last 2 years. Like it's insane. Like he's just like, I mean, obviously because he's been averaging the triple double, but like it's just crazy how many of them are just happening like recently, where he's just like, now this is just a regular thing.
like,
Like it's
yeah,
not a
that's
big
just
deal.
what he does.
Like the fact that that game where they knew he can break it was like a marquee game because they knew he was going to break it. You know what I mean? Like just because there was a possibility. It's like you
Yeah.
can't just tune in to a game thinking that someone's going to get a triple double unless it's Russell Westbrook. Like I can't just tune in and be like, "Hey,
Like, oh
Steph, get a
yeah,
triple double," and
Steph
he's just going
might
to get
get
one.
one.
Yeah, but it's like it was a possibility, and everyone was like, "It's going to happen. If it's a possibility, it's going to happen," and
Yeah,
it did easily.
he's so many bad teams' worst nightmare in this funny sense because I'm like, I'm sure when they made that trade, they were like, it's Tankapalooza time.
Right?
Russ will just not let you lose. Like he just plays too
No.
hard all the time. He's
Yeah,
like,
exactly. He's
I'm
got
not
that.
gonna be a tanker. And I'm like, they probably love it and then secretly are like kicking themselves. So I'm like,
You're
he's
totally
still
right. There was that season with the Thunder, like after KD left, where
yeah, and
everyone
it was like
was like,
these
now it's time to
weird
tank. He's like,
trying to
nope, and they
lose.
were like a 6 seed or something. Like he like still got them there. That was the year he won MVP, I think. So it was like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Russ, we're trying to lose. We need to build for the future.
that's not in his vocabulary, man.
He's like, no playoffs all the time.
All that being said, I do have the Celtics over the Wizards. They are banged up and they're looking a little rough, but I believe in Jason Tatum a lot. I think he's gonna keep them afloat for as long as he possibly can. It's gonna be a struggle. That's gonna be a fun game actually. The Celtics Wizards. I think it could go either way. But yeah, I got the Celtics winning that one.
Yeah, I had them losing, but I think they still get in. Like they squeak it. They're gonna eke it out in my mind against Indiana.
Yeah.
It's gonna be unnecessarily uncomfortably close,
Yep.
and Bill Simmons is gonna lose his mind, and Celtics fans are gonna be like, "Oh, what a waste of a season."
Oh yeah.
But it'll be a fun one. I think they'll still.
Yeah. So I've got like we basically mirrored the same thing in the West because I kind of had the same, but the flip. So I have the Wizards winning their next game.
Yeah.
It would be against the Hornets in my bracket, but so I have the Wizards at the 8. So Celtics 7, Wizards 8, and you have the other way
Yeah.
around. Okay, so that changes our larger predictions slightly.
Yeah, only slightly. We'll see. I'm actually curious because I sense some some intrigue in your.
Yeah,
I sense some
it could get weird.
marketness in you.
Yeah, it's gonna get weird. I guess we could just kick it off. So should we go back to the West, or how do we want to do this?
Let's see which one do you feel like has more surprises? Is what I'll say.
The West for sure. The West is wacky.
All right, let's do the East first then.
Okay. Okay, so we just start with like
Yeah,
number
let's
one
go.
versus the eight.
Yeah, 1-8. Yeah, let's go down to 1-8, 2-7.
Okay, so because my eight is the Wizards, so I have Sixers over the Wizards in five.
Okay. I have Sixers over Boston in 5. Like very, very much a revenge game for
Oh yeah,
Embiid.
yeah.
Uh,
It'll
just
feel good for the Sixers, I guess.
yeah, a little too much Joel for them, but
The side story. I know that you're praying for the Russ versus KD, which is obviously going to be great because also like Kyrie versus Russ too. But Russ and Joel have some good
Mhm.
beef as well. So Wizards versus
That's
Sixers,
another
I
one.
think, could get a little feisty, which
That's why
I'm
I'm
looking
like
forward to.
this whole play. I'm like, there's just mini storylines
Yeah,
everywhere. I'm like,
yeah. That's
all
one that people probably aren't thinking about, but I'm thinking about it because I'm like Russ and Joel are gonna go at it for sure.
yeah. All right, then we got who's next? Two
You've got your dream matchup than
I've got
what
my
I just
dream
mentioned.
matchup.
Yeah.
Um, it's gonna be Brooklyn over Washington in 5, so it's not gonna be as like awesome as I want it to
Right.
be. But
But
I
it'll
think
be
Russ is gonna
intense.
take one. Russ and
Yes.
Kevin are gonna take one, and it'll probably be like game 2 or something, and then be like, "Oh shit, it's a series,"
Yep.
and they'll
Yep.
get like blown away. For
I
that.
could totally see that. I could totally see that. They're gonna drop the Wizards are gonna lose the first game, and then Russ is just gonna go ballistic in the second game and win one, and then people are gonna be like, "This is a series," but then the Nets are gonna be like, "Nah, we're good," and then
Yeah,
just to give them
like no, actually,
the gentleman's sweep.
Harden was out last night, so
Yeah. Harden was partying too hard. We're good. We got this. No big deal.
yeah, so
Yeah, so I guess my matchup is Nets versus Celtics, and I got them sweeping. I think the Celtics are gonna run out of gas at that point. It's like we were just talking about. They're depleted. They're just doing what they can to survive, and the Nets are just gonna be too much for them. They're getting
yeah.
swept.
Sorry, Boston.
Sorry, Bill Simmons.
I'm even surprised myself that I had them winning one game, but I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like they could.
there'll be a Tatum game
Yeah,
probably.
I'm like he'll have one because they had some really cool games earlier in the bubble.
I think I would agree if I had them against Sixers, I think they would take one game. But I think them versus the Nets is just it's game over.
Yeah, because defenses and they're just soft,
Yeah.
so soft.
All right, this is a fun one. Bucks versus Heat.
Oh man, this is the one that I was hoping. I'll let you go first. This is the one I was hoping did not happen because
Yeah,
I
it's
want both of those teams in the
I
second.
know. I'm pretty bummed about that too. And if we think about this, I mean, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but like the way that the cards played, the Sixers are like
Coast.
in such a good position right now. Like such because they're just gonna like deal with a play-in team and then like probably deal with the Hawks or the Knicks, and it's like meanwhile they're gonna duke it out with the Bucks versus Heat. So
Yeah, both of
yeah,
those teams are going to be fighting.
yeah. So I have it going to seven, and I've got the Bucks in seven. What do you
Same.
got? Same thing.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Man,
They're gonna go at it, and it's gonna take a lot out of whatever team comes out of it too,
no,
which
like
sucks because then yeah, they're not gonna
that's
have
what
enough
kills me
energy.
about it because I'm like, in my mind, and this is like jumping ahead to round 2 as well, but I'm like, if Milwaukee had a chance to beat Brooklyn, it was going to be early when they still didn't have rhythm, when they only played
Hmm.
a couple playoff games or whatever, and then they were like rested after
Right.
sweeping Atlanta or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
I'm like, and now you got to go a 7 gamer against LA.
a team that busted you last year too. So
Yeah, so like emotionally they're gonna be spent, and it's like, yeah, now go play those 3 guys.
yeah,
Like,
it's
and
that's what I'm
when you don't
saying.
have home court advantage, like, uh, it's rough. So, but
Yeah,
that's jumping around too potentially. But yeah, I had Milwaukee in 7.
that's gonna be a fun series though. I think out of
Yeah,
like most of the first round matchups, that feels like the most evenly matched one probably,
yeah,
at least in the East for sure.
yeah. It'll be a good like little redemption win from last year in my mind.
Yeah, that's kind
Hey,
of how I feel
you guys
too.
got over
But
that
it's
hurdle.
yeah, it's gonna be. it's going to be good revenge, but it's going to take a lot, like we were just saying, it's going to take a lot out of them to be able to even
Yeah.
get over that hurdle. Okay, Hawks versus Knicks. This one was like kind of a toss up for me as well. Like I feel like the Knicks, like I don't really want to cheer for the Knicks just because of I
Yeah.
got like New York hate or whatever, but they are a good underdog story. But I think when I just like think about the teams and watching them play, and I don't know, I favor the Hawks, and I went Hawks in six. I don't have a lot of good rationale other than like I don't know. Feels like they have a little more experience, I guess. Not even much more. Did they even make the playoffs last year? I don't even
No, this
remember.
is their first time since a couple of years from now. I can't remember when the last time it was, but um, I've watched zero Knicks games this year. I've watched zero Hawks games this year. I'm like, that's probably gonna be my least favorite
Yeah,
series, but it'll probably end up being crazy and go like 6 or 7 games.
yeah. I think it
Um,
will go six or seven because I think they're pretty evenly matched.
when I saw the seedings, I was like, whoever has the home court in Game 7 is gonna win. Like that's how I decided it, and I was like, oh, the Knicks got the 4 seed, so
Oh,
they'll
yeah.
win.
I forgot that they got the four.
And
And yeah, and
I could
Madison,
see
like it's
people.
not going to be full capacity, but Madison Square Garden will still give you a pretty good advantage.
Yeah, so and that was kind of my deciding factor. I'm like, also somebody made a really good point. It was either um, on the NBA the mismatch or Simmons. I can't remember who it was. They were talking about like Trey Young's free throws and how he gets to the line so much, and I was like, really? He's such a little guy. He gets
He
like
does.
9 free throws a game.
No,
That's
it's
not.
silly.
There's no way that's happening in the playoffs. Like,
I
there's
mean,
no way they're gonna let him get to the line 9 times a game, and that's not good. He
yeah,
also shoots like 33% from three. I'm like, I thought that was what he was good at. So
yeah, he hasn't been great from three, but yeah, him getting to the line, it's like comparable to Harden because like he like has the tricks. He has all the tricks, which is annoying as hell too. Like he'll
yeah,
give you like he'll just run in front of you and then just stop and then make you run into him, and it's just like
and he's so
just play
small. Like,
yeah, like
you know,
just play basketball, bro.
yeah, I think Derrick Rose is gonna destroy him, and that'll make me happy.
That will be fun.
I
Yeah,
want to
it's
see D Rose come in off the bench and destroy Trey
that
Young.
is the other part of me. Like I almost feel like I should be rooting for the Knicks. I mean, Tibbs is back in the playoffs, which is awesome, and then Taj and
They tried to recreate the Bulls just a little bit.
I
They're
mean,
like,
honestly,
it's
they
like
got Taj
it's like if
Gibson.
Luol Deng is Julius Randle
No,
and Taj.
dude, Julius is like Noah in a way because he's a big guy. Well, he's like a hybrid of the two, I guess,
Yeah,
because
jump right.
he's got like the dang like athleticism and can probably shoot not as good as Dang, but up there because he could definitely shoot better than Noah. But then he's got the big man that can pass well and basically run the point. And like honestly, that's one of the things that like shocked me the most when I did watch Knicks games. I'm like, Julius Randle's their point guard basically, and he's like doing well.
It's very bizarre. I've literally only watched them in like House of highlights. So I'm like, I'm not gonna watch a Knicks game. Come on, they're the Knicks. But I'm like, it's gonna be good energy, good playoff energy, all that stuff.
So you got them over the Hawks in seven.
Yes, I got
Yeah,
the Knicks at 7.
Game seven in Madison Square. That'll be fun for sure.
All
All
right,
right.
let's get this West on because I'm excited to see where the chaos ensues. For
There's
show.
yeah. I mean, let me just kick it off with the chaos. I mean, I don't even know if it's chaos. It's like, okay, because the way that I net it out, and it's not even that much crazier than yours because you have the Lakers at seven, I have the Lakers at eight. Like, I have the Lakers at the eight seed beating the Jazz in 6 games. Like, it's a little crazy, but like,
It's crazy, but I'm like, aren't
yeah,
they
I'm
really an
like,
8 seed?
that's what I'm saying. Is it though? Like, it would be, it's crazy on paper, but it's also just like Knicks versus Jazz in a 7 game series. Like I'm favoring. Wait, what did I just say? The
Did you
Lakers
say in
versus
6?
sorry,
Yeah, did you say
Lakers
in
versus
6?
Jazz. Um, yeah, but either way, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
LeBron James, like
yeah, yeah.
they're
I
winning
mean,
that series.
I could see him doing it in 5, as sad as it seems. Because I'm
It's
like,
crazy.
who's the biggest difference maker on the Jazz, and I'm like sorry to say it, probably like difference maker overall. It's probably Rudy. And I'm
Yeah.
like, Rudy doesn't make a difference against AD and Drummond.
No.
Like, Rudy is a moot point there. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, you're really gonna stop AD and Drummond from getting to the paint? Like, no, it's gonna be offensive boards and LeBron probably posterizing somebody at some point. So
Yeah,
if that happens, yeah, that's
like they're gonna run like what Royce O'Neal on LeBron? I don't know. Like it's their defense is good, but I don't know if that's gonna win them a series against the Lakers. They're
yeah,
just too deep.
yeah. And so here's where I landed with that. So I got the Warriors and the Jazz in round
Yeah.
one, and it's gonna go seven, I think. And I'm like, it's kind of a toss up if I'm being honest. Like game seven, who on the Jazz has dealt with a game seven and came out on the other end like feeling great about themselves? None of those guys. Like they just lost last year in game seven.
Yeah.
I picked Utah only because I'm like, if you're running an 8-man rotation and you have been for like the whole year,
Yeah.
might be a little bit burned out by the time they get there, and they're on the road and they're
Yep.
in so I'm like, I got Utah in seven, but I want the Warriors to pull that off so bad just to see
Yeah.
how the world explodes if that happens. So
That would definitely be wild. Like, I mean, either way is wild for an 8 seed to take the one, but like I think it's more likely that the Lakers can do it than the Warriors, but it's definitely not out of the possibility for the Warriors to like stay hot
yeah,
and just outmatch the Jazz somehow, or the Jazz to. I think it would take the Jazz to like kind of falter a bit, like something really bad will go wrong. Either like someone just like either gets hurt or just like can't shoot for shit for like, and it just gets the yips and like just disappears, whether it's a Donovan or someone else on the team.
yeah. Clarkson gets the yips in a game seven.
I mean, Clarkson's like,
Got big problems.
yeah,
Oh man, I want that series to go be competitive because I feel like if the Warriors have a shot, it'll have to be.
I mean, I think what we're both saying is I think either way, that's going to be a pretty competitive like 8 versus 1,
Yeah,
like one of the most that we've ever seen, because usually it's just like a, all right, we'll take care of them 4 games. Like I can't see the Jazz between the Lakers or Warriors just being like coasting, like those are going to be, that's gotta suck though to be like number one or number two, like the Jazz and Suns sitting top on top, being like we have to probably deal with either the Warriors.
yeah. Or LeBron, like oh man, that's a good segue to the sad Suns. Sad Suns are gonna lose in six in my mind. Like
Because you have them against the Lakers,
yeah,
right?
because I have them against like it was another one of those like matchup things. I really mainly because I'm like I feel like Portland we already didn't expect much out of them in terms of like how far they were gonna go just in general. I really wanted Phoenix to avoid playing the Lakers. So it was
Yeah.
like we had Portland, Phoenix. I wanted the Lakers to get the six, have Dame in the play in.
Yeah, the way that these, like I was just saying, it's like the way it played out for some of these West teams is pretty unfortunate.
Yeah. I'm like, dang Phoenix. Like, because I don't see an out for them winning that. Like, if somehow Golden State gets the seven, then I see a better path for them to get out of round one.
So that's a great segue because that's what I have. Because I had the Warriors being the 7 seed. I do have the Suns beating the Warriors, which I think if that is the series, that's gonna be a phenomenal series. Think about it. We're gonna have a Devin Booker, Steph Curry
Man.
shootouts all day.
The CP3
Yeah,
Steph connection from back
yeah.
in the day.
I think it's gonna be fun. So I have Suns over Warriors in 6.
Yeah. That feels solid too. I it's to me it's purely about matchup for Phoenix. Like if they get the Lakers, they're out. If they get the Warriors, they're in. But and then I mean, really determines how far they go in general. Because like looking at the
Yeah.
next round, I'm like,
Yeah, and like to me, it's like I don't know. I still don't feel like they're legit contenders. So to me, it's a win already to just be what they did, to do what they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be the number 2 seed after, like I said, not making the playoffs at all last season, and like getting that experience for some of those younger guys for Booker to play a playoff game and just get that experience. Even if and then like we said, they're probably going to either play the Warriors or Lakers. So like going up against a pretty tough team and trying to at least make it competitive. But I don't expect them to go to like the conference finals or anything.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, depending on their matchups. And I could see them beating Denver or Portland if they get that.
Yeah.
I could, depending on how they played in round one, I would determine
Yeah.
pick there.
Yep.
But, all right, then we got Denver, Portland. I got Denver in 6, and I feel like Portland has no answer for Jokic at all. Like Nurkic is a good.
I was gonna say, what about Nurkic? I don't know if it's an answer, but I think it's something.
He's a good defender, or he's a good offensive player. Like defensively, I feel like he'll be on an island a little bit, especially like with Jokic hitting threes, and like they already have nobody. Like they can't play Jokic and Kenner at the same time. That's impossible. And so,
yeah,
I don't know. It'll be a fun game because Dame will still win just by being Dame.
Yeah. That's where my mind was going too, because on the opposite end, it's like I don't know how much of an answer they'll have for Dame.
Yeah, nobody to guard him. Yeah.
Yeah. So
or CJ really.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like their guard. I mean, they have some decent defensive guards, I guess, right? Like Gary Harris and I don't know, but like
yeah, like I don't see either of them.
Right,
like,
right.
I see 20 plus a game for both Dame and CJ.
Agreed. So I was thinking the same. I feel like it is a pretty big toss up, but I have Blazers over Nuggets in 7. I think it's going all the way to 7.
Man. Dang, Jokic, gonna sour your MVP.
I know. It's like it goes back. Like again, it's funny because I'm giving Jokic the MVP for a lot of reasons, but one being the fact that they made it this far without Jamal. But I think they need him. They need him in these playoffs. Like we saw the bubble last year. Like yeah, Jokic was really good, but like Jamal Murray was winning them so many games that they like had no business even winning. So not having him at this time, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, that's a good point. I got it in 6 for Denver, but I think a big part of why I have it that way is because of what they've done. I maybe need to go look back at their last like 10 games and see who they beat and who was playing when they beat them. So,
I mean, I forget that they have Aaron Gordon now.
We literally forgot that their trade happened when Murray went down. It was just like, oh.
And I honestly think that, I mean, I haven't been following very closely, but I think it's been really good for that. Like, I think he's like a really good fit, and that's a big reason why. Like, obviously we're giving most of the credit to Jokic, but I think Gordon's been a pretty good addition that's been keeping them afloat while Murray's been out.
Yeah. I'm gonna look up Michael Porter Jr.'s last 10 game stats. I'm very curious. Because I think offensively, he's the only dude that can like fill that gap.
Totally.
His last 10, he's been averaging 21, 6 boards, 2 assists, shooting 54, 46, and 93% from the free throw line. So if he can keep that up.
Yeah, holy crap. Like, wow.
That's his last 10 games.
That's an unbelievable 3-point percentage. I did not even know he was shooting it that well.
Yeah, 45 from 3, like literally 50, 40, 90
in the last 10 games. But that's crazy, dude.
Yeah. So we'll see. That'll be the wild card for them. And he's averaging 19 a game on the season too. So who knows?
I mean, there's that's such a fun, like an interesting one too, because he was favored to be like such a high pick, but he had all the injuries, and then obviously he was like injured for his first season or whatever in the NBA. But now like you're seeing it and you're like, yeah, like that dude should have been like a number 1 pick if he was, all the things if he was healthy and everything played out well. But you're like, damn, like he like there's honestly times where like he reminds me of KD, and I'm just like, that's always like, I don't know.
It's always scary.
Yeah, it's scary to make that comparison because, that's happened with Brendan Ingram too all the time. But like just the length, the ability to handle the ball, just to score at will, like he's got that. Not saying he's KD or going to be KD, but I'm just saying there's little bits of flashes there.
Which silver lining, if they do somehow still lose to Portland um, next year, like he's gonna have gotten these reps for like
Yeah,
a stretch, and then the playoffs, and then you get Murray back.
yeah.
You put him with this roster that pretty much doesn't change. Like
Then you get. I'm
problem.
assuming a full. I don't know what Aaron Gordon's situation is. Maybe he was a rental, but if you get another full season with him, that'd be interesting too, just to see how it
Yeah,
gels.
like that could be a problem for next year. So, but all right, last guys, we got Clippers in Dallas.
Another revenge matchup. I feel like in a way. Um, I have this going to 7 because I think it's gonna be similar to like the Bucks Heat because it's gonna be like they played each other last year. There's a little bit of beef and it's gonna be competitive. But I got Clippers over Mavs in 7.
Yeah, I picked the Clippers in 6, and it just the biggest difference between this year and last year. I still have no idea if KP will like be there ever. Like he's the most unreliable dude I've ever seen. I'm just
So unreliable. I feel like he's going to be in game 1. He's going to play really well, and then some weird thing's going to happen, some like nagging injury, and then he's
like,
not going to play for the rest
his
of the series.
hip
Yeah,
flutter.
yeah.
He's out for them. I'm just like,
He's literally made of glass. So like
I,
he's going to have a great first game, and then all of a sudden it's going to be like he can't play anymore. It's like what the hell?
I don't even consider him when I'm like making picks for the like. He's not part of my like calculation of like, oh well,
Yeah,
can
honestly,
Zubac handle KP? I'm like, I don't even think about that dude.
no, it's not a factor.
But Rondo is the difference maker for me. I'm like, they didn't have a dude that when Kawhi was like, I don't want to touch the ball right now. I don't want to run the offense. Like they didn't have that.
Yeah,
Like they
that's
had
true.
Lou Williams like trying to run
Right.
the offense, and he just knows how to
Oh
score.
yeah, and he just like disappeared last season. I feel like too.
Yeah, and then they got, playoff P, who is also a little bit of a disappearer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think Rondo is the biggest difference maker there. Like he can actually set those dudes up, and defensively, like the Mavs are not there. Like they just don't have the guys to guard people. And then no Seth, man. Like I think that was way bigger of a like. I hope JJ gets the minutes. But
Yeah, that's
not
true. Yeah,
having Seth
JJ.
out there, like I think that hurts them way more.
Hey, I didn't think about it too though. JJ back in the playoffs. Good for him.
I
It was
know,
just it
like
was just the one
one off year.
one off year. Like he's right back in it. I didn't even think about that until just now. I'm like, good for him. He's back in.
I haven't seen him play a ton, which is
I don't think I've seen him play for the Mavs like at all.
which is extremely weird to me because I'm like, you want him standing there so nobody can guard Luka and he can just do what he wants. What are y'all doing? But I can also see like if he can't guard anybody, so we'll see.
Yeah, I do feel like I hope that I mean he could be an X factor because if they can get him going, I think that's going to be huge. And like if him and like Maxi Kleber are like drilling threes consistently, that's going to be a difference maker. It's like I think I texted you this before like mid-season, and I was just like the fact that the Mavs have to rely so much on like Jalen Brunson to like be good and like
Yeah,
score a lot is just like it's like no offense to him, it's just kind of like that's your second option. Like what's going on here? Like Tim Hardaway Jr., where are you? Like KP, where are you? Like it's just weird to me that like the second option is a Jalen Brunson. But hopefully, like with Redick in the mix and stuff like that, like those guys could get going. So you're not heavily relying on just like a Jalen Brunson to have big games.
yeah. Aside on the Mavs, do you think it makes sense for them to have Luka basically being point guard? Like, do you think that's the best role for him, or is it just like what they're doing because he can do it?
I think that's like just what they're doing. But like, so you see him like being more of a off the ball guy. Like what do you see his ideal role as? Because I do feel like he likes to have he thrives when he does have the ball in his hands. But I think maybe he's just trying to do too much sometimes because he doesn't have a supporting cast.
Like it makes me wonder if because like LeBron handles the ball as a point guard a lot of times.
Yeah.
But they also picked up Schroeder.
Right, and I feel like he plays well when Schroeder's on the court as well.
Yeah, and we saw how good they were when they got Rondo and had a
Yes.
like point guard. And I was like,
Yeah.
would a guy like Lowry would a like point guard?
Yeah, a
That's
legit
what
point
that's
guard.
like it's part of why like Jalen Brunson is so like helpful for them. Because like,
Right.
oh, you got another guy that now Luka doesn't have the ball. He can
Yeah.
create a little bit of offense, but I'm like, he's still just Jalen Brunson.
And exactly.
Like,
No, that's a good point. I
like
do wonder what would happen. You throw in like yeah, like a Lowry or
and it makes me wonder. I know they're nowhere close to getting a pick for him, but I'm like, I was watching the tournament and I was like, man, I wonder if you get a guy like Jalen Suggs, like if
yeah,
they had a point guard, what would that team actually look like? Like,
yeah. There's a lot of questions, I guess, with the Mavs, like what the future of the Mavs is, because it's like you have Luca, that's your future, but like, what do you do with
yeah,
him, and how do you like you got to form a right team and the right set of guys, and
yeah,
it always comes back to this Porzingis thing because it's like
yeah.
that should be
He's
the guy, but
he's the only dude that I feel like is not a part of the future for sure. Like,
yeah, and it's
I
like,
know
but
he,
then like, what do you do with him, you know?
yeah. I'm gonna look up like how much time he has left after this.
Yeah, honestly, I'd like to know. I feel like Mavs fans too are probably just like just tired of it at this point.